Okay, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Iyori Folani. We're still in the throes, shall we say, of, well, the jubilation. We're in the jubilation, actually. 25 years of unbroken democratic governance with, varying shades to it, but we are in democratic governance. We're well out of the military, and that's been the theme of all the celebration, as the president was saying yesterday. He said it quite a number of times, but yesterday at during his national broadcast, there's nothing that can top democracy. So it's been a hard-fought victory that we have now. And so we're going to look at celebrating Nigeria's 25 years of democratic governance. And our guest this morning is the National Secretary, All Progressives Congress, Senator Ajibola Basiru. Good morning to you, Senator.
Of yesterday.
Okay. I'm sure they'll give me a bit more volume so I can hear you, but I do believe that I get a response from you.
Good morning. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Thank you very much, Senator. We can indeed hear you. Much to celebrate in your, from your perspective. Might that be a good opening question?
Yes, definitely. More to celebrate, and I will start with what we may consider to be mundane, but that is a pointer that's a need for us to celebrate. When you look at all, major television stations in Nigeria today, and even our radio stations, I think between the hours of 7 in the morning and the 10 in the morning, they always have different kind of program, bringing different commentators and opinion models to express our opinion, make criticism of government, offer alternatives, whether congent or otherwise. When you look at this, that is one thing to celebrate, that we have a society where there's plurality of idea, where there's freedom of expression. Contrast this with what happened during the military era. I remember those times when we had to go to Alagbado to appear on Kakaki. You will discover that if care is not taken, you may not actually get home after you might have made any criticism of the government of the day. So to the extent that we are in a society where people are free to express their opinion, they are free to speak truth to power without any form of disability in terms of their liberty and their property. That one is significantly something to celebrate. Secondly, as a democracy unfolds in Nigeria, you will contrast a situation whereby you have power with we have power without responsibility during the military era. Even though, as we see, we are still challenged in many areas in terms of infrastructure development and in terms of addressing the welfare of our people. But when you contrast this with what happened during the heydays of military rule, we are definitely making progress. And if you look at our country, for instance, look at even the federal capital territory, Abuja, and they contrast what we had before 1999 and what we now have 25 years after. The same thing with other states of the country. I remembered very well that in before 1999, before the governorship of Ajibola Tinubu, if you dare to enter Oregun Road, you are stuck there for the day. You dare not say you are going to Apapa because that will be the end of the activity of that day. You also recollect that refuse were being counted in kilometers in the early months of assumption of democracy in 1999 in Lagos. And of course, traffic congestion appeared to be the order of the day. So I would say that we have made some progress in terms of public finance management, in terms of advancing our infrastructure, even though 25 years of interrupted democracy itself is something to celebrate. You will discover that the earlier republics, the First Republic barely survived the second round of election. And of course, the albatross of the Second Republic was the 1983 general election, whereby there was overthrow barely 3 months after the second election. Now, in 2024, we have had 7 consecutive elections. We have had 2 presidents that have served 2 terms of 8 years. We have also had transition from about 4 or 5 presidents, from President Obasanjo to President Yar'Adua, to Jonathan to President Muhammadu Buhari, and now Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And of course, we have had certain challenges that ought, to have impeded this democratic consolidation. But then we are saying that today we have, for the first time, a republic that has lasted 25 years. So the issue should be, yes, we have cause to celebrate, but we need to begin to interrogate issues. How do we sustain and ensure that we have democracy to be continuous in the annals of our development in Nigeria?
And also, there's so many heroes of this democracy that has endured for a quarter of a century now, looking forward to its next quarter century and so on. Both corporate, if you want, and individual. And the president in his national broadcast did pay tribute to all of those people, as well as the banquet that happened yesterday night. Quite a full roster, even though when he would have spoken about a particular category, he would have had to say, and many others, because the list was just so long. The point I'm making here is that maybe for the first time, we have, from the very, very highest office in the land, an acknowledgement of what the price that was paid for democracy and how truly heroic individuals they were. Not excluding the press, because all of this must be transmitted, must be broadcast for people to know about it. The president paid particular tribute to the press and some pressmen. But the expression of the idea that these are heroes that have handed to us a banner, and we have to do everything to really be sure that we don't trivialize the very great mandate, if I can call it that, the democracy mandate that has been handed to us. The president and many guests who spoke yesterday also spoke in that line.
Yes, I think it could not have been otherwise, because you also have, sitting as the president of Nigeria, somebody who himself, as the vice president said at the democracy lecture at the presidential villa on a Tuesday, he himself is an unsung hero of democracy. You will know the role he played in the National Democratic Coalition and the fact that he had to go to exile. His business in Nigeria had to, suffer. And of course, many of his property had to be sold to use to be able to prosecute, the struggle against military rule. So if you have somebody who himself is an actor in the struggle for democracy, of course, he will have to acknowledge the other compatriots who also worked to ensure the enthronement of democracy in Nigeria. And beyond the roll call that was made by the president and some other commentators, we should also not forget the role that the Nigerian student movement played during the struggle for democracy. And at the risk of sounding one trumpet, I will say that my humble self was also one of the victims of the struggle for democratic advancement of Nigeria, because I had the cause to be expelled by 2 military dictators from 2 different universities. First by the President Ibrahim Babangida administration, and then with Decree 47 by Abacha administration at 2 different universities, and quite a lot of other, compatriots of mine. I even had the education still truncated up till today. Some had to pay the supreme sacrifice when military had to open fire on many of the demonstrations that was conducted. I remember the 3 million man march against Abacha at Yaba, where we lost quite a number of our contemporaries when a military brazenly opened fire. And it is important for us to be mentioning this undemocratic practices, the tyrannical attitude of the military rule, because it appears that when you see that 25 years of democracy, quite the land chunk of our young people who are now voters, who are now in the society, they did not witness the draconian attitude of the military. So for historical purposes, And in order for them to be able to appreciate what we now have, we need to remind ourselves. You will remember Decree 2, whereby somebody can even be, arrested and detained without, being taken, to court for years and for months. You remember Bekola Kuti and some other compatriots who are just, rounded up on the trumped-up allegations of organizing the coup and sentenced to hundreds of years in prison. You will also remember the military tribunals set up, to try Kensalowiwa and the way he was, killed, even when the appellate processes are not being exhausted, and despite the clamor by international community that this intelligent and brilliant writer from Ogoni land should be spared. So we need to continue to remind ourselves of the atrocious activities of the military and the way that they plundered the resources of the country. You will remember a military governor taking the generator from the National Stadium to his village, somewhere in the southeast for the purpose of a celebration. And of course, you see, the impunity in terms of even utilization of our collective resources. Today, when after 25 years, we still lament about challenges that we have, we should remind ourselves that at the time when our economy was strong, at the time when we could have laid foundation for enduring economic legacy, these were thwarted by military dictators.
Okay, 1 second. Let me bring in Uche. Uche has called in from Nnewi. Good morning, Uche.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Yori Folari. Good morning, sir.
Yeah, you are actually a professor. As far as I'm concerned, I'll give you that name, Professor Yori. Good morning, our dear Senator Basiru.
Senator Basiru.
Yes, good morning. Yeah, this is Uche.
I'm listening.
Okay, thank you for calling in. So, go ahead.
I want to say that the democratic dispensation that we are in now, yes, we are very much grateful that we have actually enjoyed 25 years of democratic
unbroken
dispensation. But there are people that I was expecting to see in this that our dear president was mentioning. Somebody like Professor Humphrey Wonsu. Professor Humphrey Wonsu should not be omitted in that list because he is the electoral umpire. For us to even say that Ajibola won that election, it was as a result of his doggedness because the military junta, through the leadership of Bangladesh, had told him to stop the announcement, and he continued the announcement. So until I think he announced to about 18 or 19 states. We had about 30 states then, but he has announced to 19. So we are not just opposing the states that Ajibola has won. You know, vis-a-vis the state that has not been mentioned. So we now concluded that Ajibola won that election based on the announcement made so far. So the country who should not be forgotten for no reason. In fact, there is no reason to portray that the electoral empire because.
Okay. Thank you very much for calling in, Uche, calling in from Nnewi there. Senator Basiru, an interesting point he makes there. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with the logic he made because today we said that the June 12th election is free and fair election and is a watershed in the history of democratic election in Nigeria. So it stands to reason that the man that was the chief umpire of that election, even though the military dictator Ibrahim Babangida tyrannically annulled the election. Before you talk of annulment, there would have been an election. So I think the logic of that Ofiwosu should also be seen as an hero of that process. Is not far-fetched. And of course, you cannot say election is free and fair, and then the countenance, the contribution of the chief electoral officer of that process. I think his point is well made.
Indeed, and that is why MKO, Abiola, was referred to, and probably is still referred to as the presumed winner of that particular election. It's simply because of the work that was done at that time.
The presumed thing is the winner of the election. You see, Yori, don't let us be hiding under one finger. Abiola won that election fair and square. Even Ibrahim Tofa, who was his opponent, lost in Kano State. So this idea of we elites, we have a way of trying to paper over what we are not supposed to paper over. Abiola won. Is the winner of that election, and of course, it's on that basis that it was years after recognized with the highest honor that a living president is given. That's the Grand Commander of the Federal Republic. It's quite unfortunate that another kinsman of his who took over as president and the beneficiary of the anti-military struggle because of his deep-seated issue against fellow people from his own tribe, refused to recognize their reality. As far as I'm concerned, the question of presumed winner is, trying to be ambivalent. Abiola won that election fair and square. I voted in that election in Ward 5 of Osogbo local government, and I know very well that all over we have a pan-Nigerian mandate for MKO Abiola.
All right. Reverend Dominic, good morning to you, sir. Thank you for holding on. Go ahead now.
Good morning, Chief Yori. Good morning to Senator Basiru.
Yes.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Go ahead, please.
I can hear you,
okay.
Dominic.
Please, I think today we have made much progress. How? That progress is that one of the champions of democracy of June 12th is now the president of Nigeria. Senator Basiru, I want to make this request to you. We are too many of us, myself, many of us who fought on that battlefield. But I want to plead to you to tell Mr. President to do a Hall of Fame, which Abiola will be much larger. And the names of people who fought in this battle, like you, the way you were educated in school, I want to tell you of my colleague who was locked up by the Abacha, Hansman, Mustafa. It is Otis Oketie. He was my colleague. Why was he arrested then and locked up somewhere in Apapa? It's a terrible story. This Oketie, on the ground by Captain Mustafa then, not Major Mustafa, because Abiola passed through his house within those days and have a lunch with Chris Oketie, and now Mustafa went to arrest him. I vividly watched it, and I was, punished very well as Reverend then. That's the history. I don't want us to watch white history at this time when one of us have become the head. Number two, we must say this truth. The deputy to President betrayed us. This is a clear truth. When we are fighting on this journey, a man joined gun and joined a better government. We must say this because we're not more studying history in Nigeria. And a nation that do not know their history will make mistake and mistake again. Thank God today there's a progress. The progress is to say that the arrowhead of democracy, which is present now, is in power. It's time to do the right thing. And there's some of us who lost many things in our offices. I know one of my friends who lost his leg on that 3-man match. When the military began to shoot, they on top of his leg. I don't know where he is now. From somewhere he have left Lagos now, frustrated, but he's left Lagos with one leg on that struggle. Yes, all of our names will not be mentioned, but we need a Hall of Fame where this truth is spoken. King Gabriel did not do the best then. He betrayed us. Today I see him doing lectures of democracy. He pains my heart, but I felt pain. My office was buckled. My friend was locked up. All of us was dismissed. The people who betrayed us then are the master today.
Well, thank you very much, Reverend Dominic. Reverend Dominic bringing yet another perspective to it, because it is people that made June 12 happen. And it is people that were full of hope. They were led. He spoke about the arrowhead. And so there were people of a similar vision that were ready to bear some discomfort. The president made reference to that. They believed enough in Nigeria to take on that particular difficult mantle. And those, not everyone was really, not every particular incident was visible. But a lot of people did pay prices, and indeed some the supreme sacrifice. And so even the president, I'm sure, has that in mind. Senator Basiru.
Yes, I think the point being made by Dominic is quite clear. We need to have a sense of history, and I think having an Hall of Fame for that, landmark historical, development, and of course the subsequent attitude of people is also, very important. I think, and this is also important because of our youth. You see, when time there's a kind of forgetfulness that comes in human activity when time has lapsed. Unless you document and you have some kind of memento, if I may use that word, for such memory, you discover that even people who are the villains, who are the villains of that struggle, they will write books and write their own version of the book and
That's
say,
right.
this, is what. Just like Reverend Dominic, is pained. I was also at times amazed when I see some of our colleagues who betrayed the struggle coming forward and are now saying that they are agitating for democracy, and they are now the most virulent critique of even the present democratic arrangement, when at the time when voicing out dissent will mean either you lose your life, your liberty, and your property, or a combination of all those, they kept mute. So it's apposite for us to continue to remind ourselves, have some form of historical documentation, and of course a Hall of Fame where people who had participated one way or the other. I remember on the top of my head quite a number of contemporaries who either were involved in motor accident, trying to do veteran.
Yes.
Some
a
lost
lot of
their
people.
academic
Inconvenience. Sorry, Senator. Ada in Jos has called in. Good morning, Ada.
Yes, good morning, Yuri, Senator Bashir. It's Ada calling from Jos Plateau State. Yeah, so I think many people are saying that their names were not, but there's no way you expect the president to mention all names. What they should do going forward is that they can have a compendium or whatever and compile the names of those they want to compile, And I find it ridiculous that Humphrey Mosi is seldom mentioned, the person who conducted that election of Abiola, I wonder why. From day one, they seldom mention his name, and that's not right. It sends another signal, So all I'm trying to say here is that no matter what it is, it looks as if the June 12 struggle, of which Abiola died for, and some other people, I doubt if we have actually learned a lesson from it. I wonder if MKO Abiola, as the principal actor, will be happy in his grave with what is happening today. So no matter the gains we have made, I heard Senator Bashir talking about the gains we have made in democracy. Yes, I agree with him. But then, no matter the gain you make and there's hunger in the land, that is the most important thing. Hunger is the worst weapon, that you can use on anybody. So people should tell President Bola Tinubu the truth. Let him do something with his team to address this issue of hunger in the land. Look at what so many ungoverned spaces. The farmers can't go to the farm. They are now forced to pay to access their farms, and they have started paying. What are we talking about? Government is within a government. Let him do all that. We have to tell him the truth. I trust him, but we have to tell him the truth. People should stop all this window dressing thing, If we don't address the issue of hunger in the land, I don't think we have made any gain.
All right. Thank you. I beg your pardon, Ada. Thank you very much for calling in. Appreciate it. And Senator, I'll come right back to you.